Hey guys, yo, what's up, and welcome to Jump Inside Games. My name's Seb, and today we're gonna be having a chat about a specific topic. I will tell you what the topic is in just a second, but first I want to bring all my friends along to the podcast that you should know by now. Well and truly, we've got Blue Fox in the chat. Hello.
Hello. Glad to be here.
We've got Camazoid in.
Hey, it's always great to be here.
And we've also got Danny in the house. I'm so glad Danny's here as well.
Hello, yes, I'm here, finally, after ages.
And after it feels like I'm doing a register to a class, I feel like it's now time to finally start the podcast. So, the podcast is going to be basically about, would games benefit from having an open world? Or maybe not so much as an open world, but as in, like, if there's extra, if there's explorable areas, if the game is a little bit more open world than it was, then that's kind of what I want to talk about. I also want to talk about the opposite. If games are too open world and they can be narrowed down a bit, then that I also want to be able to take a focus on. So either of those sides are kind of like, we'll talk about either one of those. But yeah, so let's just cover some games that we might talk about inside this podcast. So, Danny, you've brought one game along. If I'm correct, you've brought FIFA.
Yep, I bought FIFA.
Cool, that's a game that I will be talking about in a bit. Camazoid, you weren't quite sure what game to bring along, were you, tonight?
Yeah, I'm still thinking. But in terms of games that have, let's say, way too big of an open world that it doesn't deserve to be like that, I do have quite of games in mind that I want to talk about.
Okay. And then, Blue Fox, you've come to me with, I think, like 3 or 4 of them, haven't you?
Yes. I've thought about many games, and I will bring in mainly 4. But again, once we start talking and we start bringing other games, then I might also bring other examples. But my 2 main examples would be Spec Ops: The Line and Mafia 2 for this podcast.
Okay, but let's open it up a tad then, shall we? So let's start talking about a game that I'm very much interested in, and be fair to bring everyone into this conversation. Danny, starting off with you, okay?
Yep.
I am kind of a FIFA fan. I do like football. I like playing football games. I'm not so much as I like watching football, but I do like playing it. I'd say I've had kind of a FIFA vibe over the past few weeks, so I've kind of like slowly got into FIFA a little bit more. But anyway, one of the things I found like that I am quite always looking at those games about is you play on the match, yeah, and you keep the football about, you score goals, all that kind of stuff. Every game's different, lots of drama and all that kind of stuff. You know the bit between matches? You know when you go through the menu screens and you like decide who you're doing, what you're doing with, yeah? I want to be able to like have a story mode in that. And I'm only talking story mode, not multiplayer. Multiplayer can stay as it is. I don't want to touch multiplayer. But story mode, how cool would it be is if you could run around the stadium?
All right, I'm going to stop you right there. There is sort of... Yeah, well, there is a story mode, but it's not actually a story mode. So something called career mode.
Yeah.
So if you got 2 options, you either be the player or you either be the manager. Let's say you pick manager. You've got 2 options. Do you want to be a manager who is a real life person? So do you want to be Jurgen Klopp? Do you want to be Mikel Arteta, which are managers of football clubs, or do you want to create your own manager? You can name whatever you like. You can name it your own name. You can name it whatever. You can customize how he looks, anything like that. Anyway, let's say you customize a new manager. You name it yourself.
Yeah.
You pick a club, any club.
Mm-hmm.
Usually it's the one that you like, that you support. So I pick Arsenal. And then now there'll be like a whole like, oh, the new manager taking over. And then you start having to manage that club. You have to manage the players. You have to manage, are we getting enough money?
Mm-hmm.
What to do, like decisions. So there is a story mode, but it's all in a menu. It's all like a big menu. Like for the lineups, you have to. It's a menu to to simulate a new day. It's a menu, and pretty much you just press simulate, and it goes through the days, and you will get emails like transfer offer or loan offer or budget increase, something like that.
Yeah.
And you have a massive calendar. When's that match going to be? When's this match going to be? So there is sort of a story mode, but it's not really like a COD story mode. Like there's an
I understand.
actual like concept. And then you got
But
player.
the question I'm asking, yeah, beneficially, do you think the game would be, I don't know, without changing the actual game of football, yeah, keeping that career mode as it is, but you know those in-between things, those in-between menu things?
Yeah.
What if you could, like, explore the stadium, you know, walk into an office room, or, like, you know, go into the kit room behind the things, you know, all that kind of stuff? Like, do you think that would be interesting? Like visit your favorite football pitch as what, you know, as in like an additional extra on that game.
Yeah, but it'll be cutscenes. So like,
I'm talking non-cutscenes. I'm talking actually being there.
What, like
using your character, walking around as a third person? Yeah,
a third person. What? So like, you have to wake up every day and you have to actually drive to the training ground and actually.
No, not as much as that. I think that would take a little bit too much effort. I'm talking about like being able to walk around the stadium itself.
What? Just as one feature.
Yeah, and depending what club you are or where you are, you know, different stadiums have different explorable areas.
Nah.
You don't think so?
I know. I mean, I think you could only do that if you're actually gonna make everything explorable. Because if you're just making that one bit explorable, what's the point?
Okay, we'll get back to different types of those games in just a second. Blue Fox. Okay. You mentioned. Let's have a look at Far Cry 4. Yeah. And I love the Far Cry series. They're so explorable. There's loads of different things. It's basically, they've even got watchtowers to climb up on, like Assassin's Creed. They're not copying it. They're just something similar. Action adventure. How would you change that game up then for a second? Then what would you do to that?
Well,
game?
it's Far Cry 4 is one of the games that I've brought as a good example of an open world game that should stay open world. I brought Far Cry 4 specifically, but the whole Far Cry franchise would apply with this logic. I would say that there are some sort of games that they are designed with an open world in mind. They are designed to have many places you have to liberate, many towers you have to climb, many collectibles you have to collect, you have many enemies you have to defeat across the map, many vehicles to use to drive or fly or dive around the map. And then, yeah, it would make little sense to convert this open world experience into a linear one. Somebody could say that the Far Cry franchise started linear. It started with the first title that was more similar to Crysis. It was made by the same developers. That's the Cry part of the Far Cry name. And the first Crysis and the second one, they are linear title. They have huge maps, huge levels, but they're still levels. So you still go from level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But I would say that to go back to that formula wouldn't work now with the current Far Cry Ubisoft style of game that they have. The Far Cry 6 was the most disappointing title for me, at least. That was the latest one that was released, but I wouldn't say that making it linear would fix that. I would say that in this case, for this franchise, the open world works and it has to be that way.
Do you think that the Far Cry games, the newer ones, I guess, are getting more boring because to me Far Cry 5, other than the story, feels practically the same with Far Cry 6?
Absolutely, yes, and that's the reason actually why I brought Far Cry 4 specifically, is because I believe that Far Cry 4 was the best version of what a Far Cry game could be, and then they just kind of did that more times. They picked with Far Cry 3, they improved it with Far Cry 4, but then they just kind of photocopied the games and they just made it more like RPG. So now suddenly you cannot, take a whole town with your bows and arrows. No, you have to fight the enemies that are according to your level, because apparently an enemy that's stronger can survive a rocket launch. And I found that to be very silly to have in a Far Cry game. This has been a problem in many Ubisoft games, as we know, but for Far Cry especially, I feel it's quite a huge disappointment. So Far Cry 4 was a very tight experience, open world. You can roam around, you can kill enemies just using your knife, and a wonderful experience, very visual, very appealing. And then, just making that same game after 10 years doesn't work anymore. I believe that that type of video games worked back in the PlayStation 4 time, in 2014-ish, I think it was released. But 10 years later, they don't work anymore.
I think it's kind of also audience renutation. I think kind of like when you're a gamer, if you play like Far Cry 1, Far Cry 2, Far Cry 3, or Mafia 1, Mafia 2, Mafia 3, Mafia 4, that kind of stuff. As much as I like every individuality about those games, you often come into those games at a start point. And the start point of whether you start off is how you judge the whole series. And you'll know this if you're a big fan of something like Assassin's Creed and stuff like that. Where Origins was that kind of jumping on or jumping off point. For I feel like a lot of gamers out there. For me, I played up till Syndicate, and then when I saw Origins, it turned into this more RPG based video game. And when I played that game, it didn't feel like that old school Assassin's Creed. But that's got to be okay because it's got to appeal to new fans as well as the original ones. So if you are an original fan, you might think, no, this is too much of a change. I've got to get off this because I can't support something that goes down these routes. But then again, maybe the audience, how passionate is that audience? Because I believe that audience is very passionate. They probably shouldn't have changed the game up, but they did. And with the latest game of Mirage, they've kind of mixed up both the old school and the new school, and it's kind of brought some past fans back, and it's brought along the new fans with it as well. So for me, I like Mirage. I like what it's doing there. With games like Far Cry, because it's a rinse and repeat type feel of a game, I feel like every time a game gets released, it's going to slowly appeal to new fans. So new fans could get on board with number 6 without knowing anything about the previous ones of the game, and they could potentially quite enjoy number 6. They might enjoy number 7 as well, but they'll also get off at number 8 because it's just a repeat at that stage. So that's my whole take. Like, it depends where you get on, might determine how you get off, because that's how I think games are kind of perceived inside our mind. So update your game, but do it wisely.
Yep.
Carry on. What were you thinking?
I do agree with what you said. Absolutely. Some newer games should always try to appeal to newer audience to further attract more players and all. But they should never disrupt the elements and the aspects of their games that their core audience love them for. Because if they do ruin those aspects just so they can appeal to newer types of audience, they're literally destroy and lose their own core audience.
Yeah, makes sense. So I'm going to go to Danny. Dan, I'm going over to you quickly. I'm going to go straight into Call of Duty a little bit.
Okay.
Okay. Call of Duty added in Warzone, which is basically a big all-rounder, massive, kind of free roam kind of area compared to the natural, multiplayer maps of Call of Duty.
Okay.
Thoughts on this, and do you think people enjoyed this more than the actual multiplayer levels?
I think the original Warzone was amazing, but they tried to add more, but didn't work. Like the original Warzone map was amazing, Verdunks I think it was called, and then we had Rebirth Island, which everybody actually loved it. Everybody loved it. We're all obsessed with it, and then they changed it, and they got rid of it, and then they added a new map called Pacific something. I didn't like it. Then they had Warzone 2.0, and that's when I kind of stopped playing Warzone. What I'm hearing is, as of now, it's really weird the way they've done it. Like to unlock guns or just to have guns are really weird. People aren't really liking it right now, or at least that's what I'm hearing and seeing. But back to the original Warzone, it was amazing. and I think it was a really good thing they did. They made it free, and they added characters from other actual COD games, which had more people come into it. But now I don't think it's as good. I don't play it much anymore. I only play it if I get begged to play it. But the original one was better. But yeah, I think it was a good idea back then.
Ignoring the whole of the Modern Warfare, Danny, yeah? Apart from that, zombies mode, yeah? Being in open world, do you think do you think that was the best direction that they could that they should have gone into? Or do you think in Modern Warfare 3, do you reckon they should have kept zombies as a more linear, more closed down, explorable?
What have they made zombies multiplayer?
I think they've done
what do you mean?
zombies.
I think
they've
like a
done
big map.
Call of Duty Zombies, and I think they've done it as a big open world map. Like it's explorable. Like
No.
it's like the Warzone size. I think.
No, that's terrible.
You think that's a bad idea?
That's shocking. I know that's shit. They just ruined the concept.
Do you think that's just like it's just taking out
Just the money
what
grabber
zombies
again.
is?
Yeah, just stupid idea. One guy said, "Oh yeah, let's try that. That must be good."
Okay, so do you think they should keep zombies kind of a little bit old school?
Yeah.
And to kind of keep it in kind of like that unlock a door to get through another area and all that kind of stuff?
Perk up or pack a punch or whatever, like them perk things. Like I don't like it.
And can you now drive vehicles in zombies? Would you think that's a good thing? Like,
I haven't played it.
they brought vehicle driving into a zombie game, and I think it's like a multiplayer zombies and Warzone all mixed together. I'm not quite sure. That's what it feels like.
I see where you're going with this, Seb. And while thinking about it, I actually think it doesn't work.
I mean, you got to stick to what you're good at. And for games like Elden Ring and for games like The Witcher 3, personally, on my factor, they are open world. They work. They just work. And then there are games like Half-Life 2, yeah? Half-Life 2. Half-Life 2 would not benefit being an open world. It benefits of being a linear storyline path. That's what I get from this. But there are games out there that I think could be open world and could have a beneficial factor about them. Blue Fox, have you played the game Portal?
Yes, I have. Yes.
Could that game benefit? No, and I'm not talking about fully open world. I'm saying just like just a big map area of shooting portals.
I would say no, absolutely not.
You don't think
No,
so?
absolutely. It's the game works very, very well because the levels are compact with things to do, and it's an enigma you have to solve every time. The game is fun because there are many chambers that you have to go through. Some of them are quite short, you figure out the puzzle quite quickly. Some others you have to think more. And ironically enough, the bigger ones are the ones that are the most dull because you have to maybe travel all across the map because you have to press a button or whatever. Instead, the smaller ones are the ones that give you the biggest health headaches because you say, oh, but how can I do this? I've tried all combinations, but the one that you didn't try is the correct one. It's, well, if you have a very big map, you say, oh, there are like 600 combinations and only one will be correct, then you stop playing. You say, okay, never mind. I don't want to do this anymore.
Okay.
I would say that if anything, Half-Life could work better open world than Portal. And there is a game that's called the Talos Principle, which is also a puzzle game in first person, so similar-ish to Portal, which does have areas that are a bit bigger. The quote-unquote chambers there, which are the levels, they are interconnected into a bigger hub, and some of them do interact within the bigger hub. So it's not open world, but it is bigger world, if you will. And that game works well, true, but it's not Portal related. The portals are quite confusing to use. So if you start placing them kilometers away and say, where did I place the portal? And then I have to go there and put it back and then go through the portal. It's I wouldn't think that would work.
Okay, remind me again, because I haven't played this game in ages. Mirror's Edge Catalyst, is that open world?
Yes, and
The previous one was not, right? If
Absolutely.
I'm correct. The previous one was more yeah. Which game do you prefer?
Right.
And what, like, because that's a game that had two
well,
options.
it's funny you asked me this question because last year, no, even like 2 years ago, I made a video entitled Mirror's Edge Catalyst, the best idea that didn't work, exactly explaining how the first game was nice, but it was linear. And everybody said, oh, this game is nice, it's linear, and it's very short. It would be, exciting to have this game, but open world and bigger. And the EA did that after, I believe it was like 7 years. So it took them quite a long time to make the sequel. And the sequel, it's not great. And I've played it, I've completed it, and I think the same. I said, yeah, it's all right. It's not a bad game, but it's not. It doesn't work. It was the most intuitive idea to make the first Mirror's Edge an open world, because the first game was set in this beautiful city, futuristic. Everything was white with these bright colors, and you could run anywhere. You could climb, you can kick doors, you can go into the sewers, but it was linear. It was like a platformer. Like if you played Mario, the levels, there was only one correct way to go. And then when they made it open world, there were multiple ways you could traverse a level, but all of them were pretty much the same, and it felt that you were just going around the same, like, 4 streets all the time. So then suddenly people said, well, I'd rather have more levels with distinct sceneries than just to be forced to go from building A to building B to building B to building A 10 times. Yes, the game will be longer if you do that, but will it be more exciting? Absolutely not. So Mirror's Edge, if anything, it's a quite striking tale on how not all games that are linear have to be converted to open world, because sometimes when they do, they do fail.
Okay, and then Camazoid. You said you had some games that you weren't, but that you said that you were thinking on, or you were thinking of bringing along. What games were those games?
Yeah. So you told me that there are. Do you think that there are some games that are open world but shouldn't be open world? And I do agree with that. There are certainly two games. For example, there's Horizon Forbidden West, which is a game that I did like, but I've had a lot of problems with, mainly because its open world is quite big, but it feels a lot useless. It feels empty a lot. Most of the time, you'll be running around this world doing absolutely nothing. Even the side quests have absolutely no meaning.
Running simulator. Is it a running simulator game?
Yes. Absolutely. And even the atmosphere, and the environment, sure, it does look great, but it feels the same. I'm just moving around from one chapter to the next. So the game is open world, but it just feels like it's closed up because I'm literally progressing the story. That's the only thing that I want to do, because the activities on this open world just feel unnecessary. And the environment looks okay, very beautiful, sure, yes, but it's not captivating for me to explore or try to do something. There's also another game, Forspoken. Forspoken had a lot of problems, and this game had a huge open world, and the marketing was just about this game was based about how big the world is, and it's big for absolutely no reason. It's the same problem that I had with the Horizon Forbidden West. This is an open world game which is so big for apparently no reason, because the atmosphere and the environments look the same. The world feels empty. There isn't any enemies to fight, nor any people to talk to, or any villages to pass by and see. It's just deserts, snow, some forests and stuff. It just feels the same. And you just progress from one mission to another, hoping that something will happen in the story that will keep you engaged. As for the open world, it just feels very normal. So I think that those two games, they could have at least, let's say, made the world a bit smaller or closed it up a bit and focused on the areas that you explore as you progress in the story. So for me, that way makes it actually a lot more engaging. There is a game that I stand by in terms of open world because they did it very, very well, which is Ghost of Tsushima. Ghost of Tsushima did its open world very, very, very well. It looks absolutely stunning and very, very beautiful. It's based on some historical event in Japan. Ghost of Tsushima to me is one of the most beautiful open world games ever made. Even if you're not doing the story or the side quest, you're just exploring this world because to see how good it is, how beautiful this world is, and it was so well done to the point where I actually ignored the story, even the side quests, and I just want to explore. That is how you do an open world.
It's kind of like that thing. Like some games work with it, and some games work without it. And but I think it's always exciting to see the take on what happens if that thing changes. But okay, so here's a question then, and this I'm going to go to Danny. How big should an explorable area be? Do you remember the Callisto Protocol?
Yeah.
That was a good game. Now that had certain areas of explorability that you could walk around in, but they were kind of like very small area divide.
It was more of a path. It was just a big path moving in one direction.
But at the same time, there were certain areas that you could explore more.
Yeah,
if you have a path that's very linear and that you need to walk forward on, as a game like that, how big of an area do you think is required to have a bit of exploration around? Like, I think Callisto Protocol did it right, but what are your thoughts?
I think that there has to be some type of area where you have to do something to get in, and when you get to that area, there's some loot available. So somewhere where they add in, it could be a door, it could just be a couple more enemies there you have to get past, or you could just decide not to go in that direction. So there's a place, if you want a bit more loot, you have to fight them, you have to go down a different path, which could take a couple more minutes. You grab all your loot or whatever you're looking for, you go back the way you came, and then you start following the path. I think that itself is pretty good. But, like, not all the time, but enough so it doesn't get boring. And sometimes a bit of, like, mazes. Not like a literal maze, but like the Callisto Protocol. It doesn't tell you exactly where you have to go. You kind of just have to find it. And if you add that element to it, to once, I think Callisto Protocol did it pretty well. I'm kind of agreeing with them.
You know, like sometimes, like, I don't know, for example, like, for me, it was The Last of Us. But you know these games, like, you know, we're like, all right, come along, let's go to the next part. Got to go through that door to get to the next part of the area. And you can be like, well, I could, or I could get heavily distracted and explore around for a bit. Those are the things I kind of like that kind of feel for. Yeah, Dying Light works as well. So, yeah, it's like, yeah, I could follow and go to the city, but could explore just a little bit, level myself up before I go to the next mission. I kind of like that kind of feel. And that's very RPG, and that's kind of what you get with an RPG.
Yeah, in Dying Light, there'll sometimes be like a door you have to go to the next level. And it's there, you could go, but sometimes there's more loot around you can always collect up. So it's not like it's just always there for you. But yeah, I get what you're saying.
Yeah. If I may, there is a video game that I would like to bring that would explain this quite well. Have you guys played Bioshock Infinite?
I've played it, yeah.
I don't know if you gents are aware, but the developers, Irrational Games, they had the plan to make the game open world at first. They wanted to make a big Columbia to explore in the clouds and to make it Far Cry-esque kind of gameplay. But the studio wasn't that big. It's they made the first and the second Bioshock, but they weren't Ubisoft or Nintendo caliber developers. They were quite a relatively small team, so they said, okay, well, let's make a shorter, more compact adventure similar to the other Bioshocks, but with areas that are a bit bigger than the other Bioshocks. So you did have some levels where you could roam around, you can see some districts of the city, but it was still linear in its essence, and I think that game works sublimely. It's if anything, if the game would have been open world, it could have been a bit more boring, it could have been a bit more diluted. Instead, you have an experience where you have a wonderful plot that is told with a good pace, because you go from level to level, and every step there are cutscenes, there are events, there are bosses and whatnot. and unlockables. You unlock all the powers little by little in the adventure. But at the same time, you do have that freedom to say, hey, look, this is a barber shop. Oh, cool, look at that. There is the cashier here, there's some money. Or look, if you go back where the food is stored, you can get some health, because the health in the game was food. And then, you can explore for like a couple of minutes, and then you can go on with the adventure. So in that case, I would say that Bioshock Infinite, it's one of the reasons, out of many. Of course, the game has other praises as well. But one of the reasons why it works so well, it's because it's a good compromise of a linear game with places to explore.
If a game chooses, let's say, for example, to be like a linear type of story path, for one game, and then for its next game, it decides to be more adventurous and go fully open world, do you think that that a game company should do this, or do you think the game company should stick to the original? Do you reckon they should be allowed to experiment, or do you think because fans are so used to something, they should keep and stick to the principal idea of let's keep this game linear and not so big open world?
It's this question could be answered in two ways. There are some people who say, "Oh, why did you change the formula that I liked so well of the game that I enjoyed?" And there are the people who say, "Oh, it's the same game. Why are you not changing anything?" So of course it depends. Of course it depends on which developer it's changing the formula in which series. Because on one hand, we had the example of Mirror's Edge that I already discussed, where EA tried something new. They tried to transform the formula of Mirror's Edge, the first game linear, to the second Mirror's Edge Catalyst in an open world, and it didn't work. But at the same time, you have Zelda, for instance, which is a franchise that was notoriously linear, with, yes, some places to explore, some big areas, but still linear in its design, that went full-on open world with Zelda Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. And those two games are wonderful. They are great. Some people, like myself, would say that Breath of the Wild is one of my favorite games, but not one of my favorite Zeldas, which is a bit of a paradox, because on one hand, how can it be my favorite video game without being my favorite Zelda? Because again, the Zelda franchise worked well as a linear title. You have the dungeons, you have the various plot points and whatnot, but it also works well open world. Nintendo made some beautiful games, which a lot of games after them, like Elden Ring, Red Dead Redemptions, like Assassin's Creed, they all took inspiration from Zelda. So it was a great game. It was objectively well made, and it was fully open world. So again, it really depends. It depends how the developers they envision the open world. They have to change a lot of things, so it is a risk. You cannot make everybody happy. And again, is it a risk worth taking? Personally speaking, I would say no. It's if it's a developer who makes some games which are okay, which are loved by their fans, but they're not the highest of qualities, like the Sonic franchise, then taking a step forward to make them fully open world, it's a gamble. And sometimes, like for the case of Sonic Frontiers, it didn't quite pay off. It was a nice game, but not quite loved by the fans. But again, Zelda worked. For Mario Odyssey, it worked quite nicely. For other franchises, less so. So I know it's a bit of a non-answer to say it depends, but, well, it truly does.
It's very true. It very truly does. I'm going to slowly start to bring this to a steady end, but I do want some questions and answers before we do. So I'm going to start with Danny first, and I'm going to go Camazoid, then I'm going to Blue Fox to end it all. So, Danny, first one to you, yeah? What is your favourite linear game where you stick to like a path, and then which game do you like that's open world? And I know it's an RPG, and I know it's a bit tricky because I know you judge your RPGs very wisely. So take your time, have a think, and then what time have you got? Start with linear first, because that'll be the easiest. I think I know what yours is.
No, you both.
And if you don't say it, I'm going to be very disappointed in you.
I don't want to say COD. Well, I would say that not all.
It's not COD. Yours isn't COD. I know what yours is, and it's not COD.
I'm thinking something very different.
I'm thinking, for you, I'm thinking Wolfenstein.
I completely forgot about that game. Yeah,
thought you might. That's why I reminded you.
I've got Wolfenstein, and I've got Battlefield. Battlefield 1. So, sorry. It's not like a story. It's like stories from World War One.
Okay.
So one of them is there's like four or five sectors, each with 4 missions in it. One of them is where you're a young tank driver, and there's 4 missions for that. One of them where you're a plane driver, whatever. And like there's not a lot of open world, but there's enough there to keep it really interesting. And Wolfenstein, honestly,
Yeah.
one of the best FPS ever when it comes to solo. Honestly, I love Wolfenstein, but I hate the original one. No, I hate the newest one, like not Youngblood. I think it's Youngblood.
The New Order?
The new one. No, the 2019. The one where you play as 2 people. That one is awful. I don't like it. It just it just defeats everything. But I really want them to come out with a 5th one. I think 5th. Yeah, I really want them to come out with a new one. But yeah, for linear, it's probably going to be Wolfenstein. I love Wolfenstein. It's amazing. For more RPG, I'd say probably Dying Light and Red Dead Redemption, GTA. I got quite a lot. I can carry on. Watch Dogs.
I think you want to be dynamic to what type of gamer you are. I'd say Dying Light is probably your top of the range there.
Dying Light and Watch Dogs, probably, yeah.
Yeah, those are the ones I think. Because GTA is an all-round, everybody likes a bit of GTA, but like Dying Light and Watch Dogs are kind of more very dynamic in their
when it comes to RPG,
formats,
I need to have it. I need to have the fun. I need to have some type of like combat.
I need to be able to play bowling inside a game, and if it's got bowling, then it's good. Like GTA 4's got bowling. I love bowling inside a video game. Yeah, it does. Yeah, it generally does.
Oh, GTA 4.
Yeah.
I thought you were about GTA 5.
No. No.
I was like,
It doesn't have activities. They removed activities. Not all of them, just a few, but yeah.
Yeah, but that's mine.
Yeah. Okay. Moving on to Kamazoid next.
Okay, so it's of course Elden Ring, but there's also other open world games that I really love a lot. Of course, there's Red Dead Redemption 2, and as well as Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 1. Those are 3 open world games I really love and adore. As for linear games, my one and only favorite is probably the original God of War 1 back in 2005. It is a very simple linear game. It's basically as Kratos, the main character, who's literally a man on a mission. You start from point A all the way to the end of the game, and as you progress from one new level to a newer level, newer enemies, newer challenges, all in all. And as you progress with the story, keeps you engaging. Its levels are very well made. The story is so well done for God of War 1, and I consider it as a joy to play. The mechanics are very well done, and God of War 1 is very well known as an incredible linear game. As for other linear games that I played, there's also God Hand, created by Capcom. Devil May Cry 3 is also an incredible linear game. Those are my favorites, yeah. There's also, of course, the one Blue Fox mentioned on the podcast, which is BioShock Infinite. BioShock Infinite, I consider it as one of my favorite and all-time greatest FPS games. I love the world and the story as well.
Right, okay. And then finally, Blue Fox. I'm going to guess what your open world is. Tell me if I get it right. I'm guessing Zelda is your open world.
Yes.
I thought it might be. Okay, go on then. You can explain.
Well, of course, I've mentioned Zelda Breath of the Wild, and currently I'm playing Tears of the Kingdom. So I consider them to be almost one game because they're quite similar but different. They feel like very like a continuation of the original Breath of the Wild. But yes, both are quite extraordinary, and their open world is very well crafted. It's the open world where it has many different biomes, very different things to do in the open world, many different people to talk, many different things to explore, and it's big but it's not huge, so it's quite nice. I think it's a very well wrap up world. It's ingenious. And my favorite non-open world game, that's a bit harder to think because of course there are many different the type of genres of games that are not open world, which are quite different from each other. So, I mean, I could say Portal 2 from a puzzle game, but I could also say Bioshock Infinite as an action-adventure. I could say Mario Kart from a racing game. So the options are quite plenty. But one game that I wanted to mention in this podcast, which I've mentioned at the very, very beginning, but I didn't have the time to explore well. So I think I'll mention it now. It's Spec Ops: The Line. A wonderful, wonderful game. It's a linear title, and I'm very happy it is because, again, the game could have been open world like Bioshock Infinite, but the developers scaled it down, and I believe they've done a wonderful job. It's a beautiful shooter, third-person shooter in a linear environment, set in the Middle East, in Dubai, I believe, and it's wonderful because it's a very powerful story. It's based on the novel. I don't remember the name. I think it's called Darkest Heart, something like that. And yes, it's quite powerful. It has a very powerful message and very powerful characters.
Yes, there you go. If you want to play a game right there from our team, I think the suggestions are the best ones out there. Wolfenstein, Elden Ring, Bioshock Infinite, and Zelda. Very awesome games. Love every single one of them. Definitely check them out if you haven't done. Go maybe watch a trailer just to see if you like them or not. But yeah, that sums up kind of what we talked about. And yes, if it's the end of, I think really dear developers kind of situation here. If you're gonna make a video game, stick to the game that you've kind of delivered to the fans. If you want to change a game up, for me personally, I'd say maybe make a spin-off series of that game. If you need to make a linear or an open world of a linear or an open world game, if you want to change the style of it, then maybe just make a spin-off or, make an entirely new line for it. It doesn't have to continue the main story. You can do what you like with it, Give a test out before you put it into the main course of the, gameplay. That's kind of my take from it. And again, I'm going to give you mine because I think mine is the best overall because I'm obviously the leader of the podcast here, and I'm going to gloat on that. So yeah, Assassin's Creed Mirage, give it a go. It's definitely it's definitely got that old style right from where they used to originally do the original Assassin's Creed games. If you're an Assassin's Creed fan, Assassin's Creed Mirage is a really good game. And if you haven't played Assassin's Creed for a while, you're going to find some newer experiences and some old ones. So yeah, that's my take. Anyway, moving on from there, hope you guys enjoyed. I've been Seb. I've been joined by Blue Fox.
It was a wonderful topic to discuss. Very happy with it.
I've been joined by Camazoid.
This was very difficult for me, but, well, we're getting better little by little, I guess.
And I've been joined also by Danny.
Yes. Yep, that's me.
Thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys on another Jump Inside podcast. Shall we all do it together at the same time? Shall we all say bye at the same time? Shall we try that? Okay. All right, Danny, give us a count and we'll say bye at the same time.
Right, when I say go, you ready?
Okay. Yeah.
3, 2, 1, go.
Bye. Bye.
Au revoir. Is that it, right? I don't know.
That'll do.
Yeah, I'll do.